Now, these were supposed to be the Italian fixtures that were taking place this weekend, but there are suggestions that that could change. Gab Marcotti with us to the latest. Gab, I feel like I ask you this on every show now, but what's going on?
Well, we do have an answer now, in the sense that the government took over and ultimately they're the ultimate authority. And they said for the next month until April 3rd, all outdoor sporting events are to be played behind closed doors. In other words, with no fans in attendance. And the league reacted to it by saying, okay, fine, we're not going to postpone any games. We're going to go ahead this weekend with effectively last week's schedule. So Juventus against Inter will be played on Sunday night, as was supposed to happen a week ago.
Gab, obviously we've seen Italy affected, well, one of the most out of all the countries that have had the coronavirus. Have they set a precedent now on what we could see other leagues around Europe?
Well, certainly. I mean, the Premier League, they had a talk on Monday about how they're going to handle this. Should the situation degenerate in England as well. The intention, the contingency plan in the Premier League will be also to play behind closed doors. Postponing fixtures is really difficult to do with the European Championships, of course, coming up in the summer. It's difficult to do because you don't know when these restrictions could end. And it creates sort of a very unbalanced fixture list and league table because some teams have played more games, others fewer games. So that seems to be the consensus way to go should the authorities decide that it is warranted. More closely, UEFA are still monitoring the situation in terms of their ties. There is also the possibility that locally things could change. Valencia, for example, set to play Atalanta next week. The local authority in Valencia has suggested that game could be played behind closed doors as well.
Well, on that subject, Gab, Juventus against Lyon, of course, in the Champions League, come within that window, don't they, of up to April the 3rd for that second leg. That game will be behind closed doors as well?
It certainly does. It doesn't seem as if there's really any alternative to it. The other possibility that some people had mooted about, why don't we go play these games somewhere else, somewhere in areas that are not affected, possibly in different countries. That idea, I think, has also come and gone because the authorities also feel that the last thing that you need is large quantities of fans from affected area going to travel somewhere else. So while there hasn't been official confirmation on that yet, it does appear nearly certain that that's what's going to happen.
Looking ahead to that second leg, how big a game changer is that? The fact that it will be behind closed doors, that Juventus won't have their fans in attendance to support them, given they're 1-0 down.
I mean, it's not. I can't give you a definitive answer because I've never been in that situation, but I can imagine clearly you've got your raucous home support normally behind you in a new modern stadium that creates a great atmosphere, and it's a push, it's a buzz for these top players, and you've now got a Champions League game which will be played almost like you're playing a game in training, and that's difficult. I mean, that's really difficult, but it is what it is.
People may not understand when Craig says it's difficult. I say, well, what's the difference? You're out there playing. When you don't have the atmosphere in the stadium, it really does take away from the game. As a player, you feed off of that energy. You feed off of that atmosphere. And when it's not there, you're searching for something to provide that energy, to provide that urgency. You know very well you're in a Champions League matchup. You know very well that it's a game that you have to win if you're Juventus. And yet, it's one of those where generating that energy is not going to come from anywhere else. And so the preparation and the coach and the players, they have to be very much in tune with what is it that they're going after, what are the objectives, and focus on those things rather than the fact that there's nobody in the stadium.
Gab?
I think without question, everybody who's done it has been affected. It's also the difference between, playing in a 50,000 seat stadium when, for one reason or another, there's only 5,000 or 6,000 people there. It does mess with you. It does affect you. One big knock-on effect also that we haven't talked about is also, it hits you in the pocketbook because these fans will need to be refunded as well. I think more broadly, what's worrying the authorities is how long will this go on, and at some point could it spill over into the euro? And there's an economic argument that's been floated by some, is that if it does extend to other countries that have to put these restrictions in place, is there the possibility, and this would be extreme, and it is just a suggestion right now, might there be the possibility of extending the season right into June, and of course that would mean moving the Euros to next summer, which would also create a bit of a logistical mess, but perhaps that might be something that comes into the discussion. But right now, all of this is premature. The issue is really circumscribed from a public health perspective to just the one country in terms of it impacting sporting events.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.